All right, I see that it's just gone past the hour, so we will jump in because I know that we are all exceptionally keen to be here. We've got some exciting topics. So, the important thing that we're discussing today and what's bringing us all together is the launch of Pinsight's new development dashboard. What we'll be talking about today was really developing executive leadership skills and how the tools that Pinsight offer can really help level up and build skills that are needed for executive leadership and really all kinds of leadership, and how these tools can equip your leaders, their managers, and the organization with more skills, more confidence, and more competence to be able to unlock their potential, increase organizational performance, and build a culture of coaching and growth. So it is my great pleasure to be with you for the next hour as we take a dive into this new release. Today, I'm joined by Martin Lanick, our CEO and founder, and I'll let a man that requires no introduction, but I'll let him do his
Well, thank you.
introduction
You're
himself.
too kind, Michelle. Thank you. Well, I'm very excited to be here today to talk about the development dashboard. A lot of thinking, a lot of effort has gone into it, and these moments are always just so wonderful to see when a product of all of this effort and thought comes to life. So I'll be playing the scientist once again on this call, and it's wonderful to spend the next hour with all of you.
Thanks, Martin. It's good to be with you as well. I'll be playing the practitioner through our conversation today, adding in a little bit of broader context, thinking with you about where this tool might apply, some of the opportunities of where better value and opportunity can be applied using these our development tools together. And also, I want to, as Martin said, thank all of our development team on the back end that's been building this for years, but also the excellent conversations and candor that our customers and clients have with us. This is really the some of the beginning of the inspiration where these tools come from. A small word about housekeeping. We will be recording our session today. What that means is that we've got our hair nicely done because we may be watching this in hopefully years to come. It also means that we'll be able to share the link out with you. So if your colleagues would benefit from this conversation, or if you need a refresher, you'll have that link available to you. But we'll also be holding questions till the end, if that is okay. So you will be invited towards the end there for your questions. You'll be using the chat feature down on the right-hand side there, and we'll take those questions there. If you are finding that you're having any technical challenges, do feel free to use the chat feature and we'll see if our team can assist you and take care of you. But for the purpose of a smooth ride, Martin and I will focus on the content that we've got covered, but we'll also make time for questions. All right, well, let's just jump in. So, today, what we hoped to cover with you and share with you is a reminder for those that are new to us a little bit more about our mission and values, why we do what we do, why this tool, why now, and how does it fit into our broader mission. Then we'll take a look at these leadership tools and how it fits into our leader readiness platform and the Pinsight app. We'll talk about how it works, the features that you'll see, where it might fit into your organizational initiatives, how it can add value to what you're already doing with Pinsight, and then we'll point towards some of the next steps and how to get started with the development dashboard. So let's just come back to the beginning a little of who Pinsight is and what we do. Those of us, or those of you that know us well, should know that at the core of all the decisions we make, from when we start innovating a new idea, between customer feedback and the way that our product team develops things, how we construct things through our development process, how our researchers get involved and the questions we ask about research, and then how we attempt to service and support customers, is really all centered around our mission to bring more fairness to leader selection, to leader development, and to leader succession. We want to level the playing field and democratize some of the tools that have been available really to the upper echelons of leadership society or leadership organizations for many years, often because those tools are incredibly expensive, or because they take a lot of time to roll out, or because those resources are perhaps misunderstood or not well understood. So what you will see today is us taking that mission even further. Now, we're not just trying to bring fairness for fairness sake. What we really believe is that leaders in organizations, frontline leaders, and particularly middle managers and executives, really have in their hands, because of the virtue of their roles, the ability to shape and craft the society we live in. We know that leaders have an extraordinary impact on the team members they lead. I remember early in my career, and how I got here was an understanding that the leader team member relationship is one of the most extraordinary and transformational, second only perhaps to the parent child relationship. This makes this role laden with responsibility, but also opportunity. We also know that leaders shape how organizations function. Do they do well? Do they not do well? Organizations have an extraordinarily increasing impact on organizational, or not just organizational policy, but government policy and the societies that we operate in. So, our real mission is that if we can get better processes, more equitable and accessible tools in the hands of as many leaders as possible, we can continue to shape a great organization and a great society for all. What you'll see today is that we're taking our values of fairness and evidence and potential even further. We've always believed that people should be treated without bias, equally, and without discrimination, so that they can bring about great opportunity in the world. We also believe that decisions and tools that we apply should be coming from a literature of evidence that should be backed by research, and they should be well grounded in knowing what works and how it works. But that we should also be bringing data into our decisions on a day to day basis about leaders, who we lead, how they lead, and how to improve their performance. But more importantly, we have a strong belief in potential, that leaders, while not all created equal, certainly have opportunities to become greater and to grow. We have a strong philosophy of a growth mindset inside Pinsight, and the launch of today's new development dashboard is taking that value even further and doubling down on that commitment to helping leaders unlock who they are, show other people what they can do, and to really bring about the potential sitting inside them, their teams, and the organization. Hopefully, you can hear I'm pretty excited about this one. So, where we are today with our leadership readiness platform, we have been on a journey over the last 14 years, taking what we know about the world of leader assessment and executive assessment and bringing it into a more efficient, cost effective, time effective process. We are well known for the work we've done in leader selection, using our upgraded simulation software to immerse leaders in a realistic day in the life experience of leadership. What we do with that is then brings us a lot of well informed and reliable data about who a leader is and what they can do today. What we've been doing with that data is bringing that into two important places. Number one, the leadership development, or the Pinsight app that I'll talk a bit more about in a moment, but also bringing about those talent analytics into a platform so business leaders and hiring managers, talent acquisition specialists, executive recruiters, talent management specialists, L&D professionals, OD executives can see with more clarity, can see with more transparency the current state of the excellent talent they have inside their organization. I'd really like to start a movement of changing it from human resources to talent assets. The great things that people can have there inside their organization. But that's maybe a webinar for another day. Where we are today is we're taking that central pillar, leadership development, and then breaking this apart and adding more into our leadership development toolkit. we're launching the Leadership Development Dashboard that couples with the Leadership or the Pinsight app to bring about a much more robust, supported, and I think scalable solution for organizations. Now, for those that are new to us, what is the Pinsight app? The Pinsight app, like I mentioned before, is a tool that is informed by the leadership simulations, the leader assessments that we run. What we do then is take the data from those assessments and understanding of who a leader is, and then we craft a hyper personalized tool for each individual leader. Now, the Pinsight app is completely data backed and evidence based. That is, we spent many years looking at the research around what is it that leaders do a little bit differently? And those effective and powerful and impactful leaders, what are they doing differently that we can replicate and learn? We might not be able to replicate the innovation ideas of Steve Jobs or the inspiration of Mahatma Gandhi, but we can look at what they do on a daily basis, replicate that, and bring about more effectiveness in each of us. So, with that research and then the detailed data that we have on each leader's personality, learning style, and their current sets of behaviors, we can craft a very detailed, actionable development plan that leaders can use on a day to day basis. Because it's app based and it means that it can be scalable for every leader. But the other thing that makes this scalable for every leader inside an organization is that it isn't asking leaders to watch a video, read a book, attend a class, go to a workshop. It's asking a leader to simply reflect on their day, to integrate a change in behavior or add a new behavior into their day, and then to make a small moment of reflection at the end of the day, logging what they did, logging what they saw, and reflecting on what they might do differently or similar next time. This means that we're not pulling leaders out of their critical roles, but crafting and shaping and refining their leadership habits in the flow of their day to day work. Now, I've obviously just talked a lot about the vision and how this works, but let me just take a breath here and go to a video to show those that are new to the Pinsight app a little more about how it works. This is the video that we share with leaders as they're invited to the app and tells us a little bit about how this works. Now, hopefully this will work here.
Welcome to the Pinsight app. This application will help you successfully lead projects, motivate your teams, and catapult your career. By using this app, you will have the opportunity to build key habits that science has discovered in great leaders. Unlike other programs that teach you theory, we focus on building your skills. Based on your assessment results, we recommend exercises that build on your strengths and maximize your growth. When learning any new skill, you start by practicing small but vital behaviors, and that's the case also with leadership. As you continue to practice, you turn these small behaviors into skills, skills into habits, and habits into your career success. Here's how it works. First, prioritize your development goals. Move your most important skills to the top. Then, every Monday, you choose one exercise that'll be your focus for the week. Each exercise only takes a few minutes, so you can easily incorporate it into your busy day. We recommend that you practice the exercise at least once a day. After each practice, write some notes about what you did or how others reacted. Then mark the day complete. You'll immediately see your improvement, and in a few short weeks, your colleagues will notice too. Harness the power of habits for your career success. This is the fastest way to unlock your potential and become the best version of you. Get started today.
All right. So, Martin, we've had the app out there amongst thousands of leaders for a few years now, and our research team have been taking a look at the data. Tell us a bit more about what we've discovered.
Sure. So this data is coming, I think, from several thousand leaders now that have been using the app, and we've been following them over time to see the patterns of how they actually use. And I think we have some exciting data to show here. So what we found, for instance, is that on average, people start using the app within 1 week, so within about 7 days of the enablement. And as you look at the patterns of how often do they actually use the app over time, so it turns out that about 3 to 4 days a week is how the average participant practices, or how much the average participant practices. Now, as a psychologist, what I really find interesting are the relationships. So, what is the profile? Are there any specific kinds of people who tend to use the application more, who tend to invest more in their development? And I think, as you would expect to see, we find that people who score higher in learning aptitude, so those who really have that hunger for learning, are 2 times more likely to use the app than those with lower learning aptitude. Also, interestingly, participants who score lower in the simulation, so when they perhaps don't get the sort of scores that they would expect or that they would like to have, they are more likely to use the application and benefit from the development. And again, the relationship is about 2 times. So those who do well, or those who don't do as well, perhaps as they would have wanted in the simulation, are 2 times more likely to use the application. When you look at some of the industries, I think, as we would expect, participants in the tech industry are more likely to use the application, perhaps speaks to their preferences, to their comfort level. And this is perhaps the most actionable piece of data from this set, and that is those participants who start practicing early. So as soon as the app is enabled, those are the ones who are more likely to actually keep using the app and practice more frequently with it. So from an implementation standpoint, the quicker we can get people to start using the app, create some excitement and motivation around it, much more likely we are to see a higher adoption.
Absolutely. I think those are some good news ideas. I know that there's many of us in the call here that have looked at an assessment report and thought, oh, this might feel like bad news. But I think the flip side of that is that even when people don't score as well as they expected, there's many that are still motivated to engage, to grow, to jump in, and can feel comfortable working with the app. I
And I
guess then
think that's the really big news, right, from this data set as well, is that um, it might be beneficial from a development standpoint to receive lower scores in this simulation, because that pushes people forward, that creates the motivation, and people are then more likely to invest in their own development.
Now, the number one question we always get is, does the app work? Now, I always like to use the metaphor here and say, well, treadmills work, but you have to jump on and use it. And I think this here is the more exciting piece. Martin, what did we discover about outcomes?
Absolutely. So we looked at the patterns of usage of the app, and then we compared it with several of the outcomes that we're tracking. And what we found is that indeed those who use the app regularly are 2 times more likely to advance their careers than leaders who do not use the app regularly. Now, I just want to make sure that everybody understands this is a correlational relationship, right? So there's no cause and effect here that we can draw from this study, but it's from a validation perspective, it's very encouraging to see that leaders who use the app more regularly are actually 2 times more likely to advance their careers, move higher up in the organization to bigger, more strategic roles.
I think this is, for us, when we've been looking at the data recently, is really the impetus and driver of asking the question. Therefore, how can we encourage and enable and support people using the app? Now, those that have been using the Pinsight app for a couple of years will see that there's been, some bells and whistles, and literally a little bell and a ding and some color changes. But the deeper question for us recently was, well, how do we really support leaders getting more engaged? We've watched patterns of responses, we've interviewed hyper app users and low app users, and this again is really where we come to today in launching the next iteration, or I suppose the supporting tools around the app, which is the development dashboard. When we know that the app is fitting well for people, people are motivated to grow, and we know that people using the app are advancing their careers and unlocking their potential using a tool that has good evidence and data behind it. How do we get people more engaged? This is where the development dashboard comes in. Excuse me. This is now the space where we can start to engage managers and coaches in that development journey much more visibly, with much more accountability, and with much more science. One of the big things we've often heard since we've had the app is people saying, well, how can I see what my team member is working on? Well, how do I know if they're practicing? I'd really like to see, what it is they're practicing today. And how can I be part of the conversation about choosing their priorities? Or, I've got big projects coming up as a manager and I want my team to be ready to take those on. We've been hearing for years that managers really want to be part of that conversation, to have more visibility, and also to be supporting the accountability for engaging. When they've equipped their team members with a tool that works, how can they support their team to use it? The other part of this tool is also about adding some smart coaching suggestions. There is an abundance of literature and research out there about what works in coaching and what helps people change. That's ultimately what the base of this whole process is about, is change. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't find change particularly easy. And I'm not always ready to take on the suggestions that perhaps I'm offered, or not necessarily ready to hear the feedback. And this is what these smart coaching suggestions will really equip managers and perhaps also professional coaches to be able to do, is to pace their level of coaching, to fit this coaching style and suggestions with the unique style, pace, and readiness of the people they're leading. So this is the grand unveil. Da, 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 da. Let's jump in now and talk about what you'll see in the development dashboard and how it can equip managers and or coaches in supporting app usage and really elevating and lifting leaders up to the next step. So the first piece is day's practice. Martin, tell us what's this about?
Sure. So this is, I think, answering one of the most frequently asked question of how much are my people practicing. So this is a simple graph that will log the days that people are actually practicing. And ideally, you would see that line going up because they are motivated to practice and they continue to do so.
Absolutely. And so obviously when managers are seeing maybe a bit of a flat line there, or a block of time that people haven't been practicing, that's time to ask a couple of questions. This is a time to perhaps reach out, to be a trigger for practicing or logging, but it's also a time to maybe check in with how your team members are feeling. Are they overwhelmed? Are they risking burnout? Is there some reason they're not engaging? Or is it perhaps also time, when we see lots of practice, to recognize a lot of effort, not just improvement, which we'll get to in a moment, but also the effort of practicing. We also see what they're practicing in terms of skills. Martin, tell us about this.
Sure. So here we are seeing the distribution of their effort, right? What are the skills where they're spending more time and what are the skills where they're spending less time? And I think the key question is to ask, does that align with the priorities of the business and where the development of this individual should really go?
Absolutely. And this is obviously a time to also think back on the assessment results, someone's personality. We often hold in mind this idea that I should really be spending most amount of time on the skills that I'm weakest at. But in fact, a lot of the literature around skill growth, career advancement, and doing well in one's career suggests that we should also invest a good deal, perhaps even more time in the skills that we're already got foundations in, but also are highly aligned to our personality and our fit, the types of skills that we will enjoy. This is where we see most leaders doing most well, when they lean into who they are rather than what they don't do well. So this is, as Martin says, a really great opportunity to align not just the skills practice with where the business is going, the projects that are in front of them, but also career goals and natural fit for the person. We then have priorities.
This is coming directly from the app of the participant. So this is where they tell the app and prioritize the different skills that they want to work on. And there's some very interesting conversations that can come out of this.
Absolutely. I can imagine during those regular one-on-ones, at the times of performance appraisal, or even in the distribution and the discussion of new projects and work. This is a time when managers can get more comfortable thinking about, hey team members, this is a time for us to be practicing and prioritizing these types of skills. This is the season for focusing on customers. It is time for us now to turn our attention to strategic planning as we approach Q4. Let's be practicing and prioritizing those types of skills. It also is important to have this conversation as managers are thinking about creating opportunities to practice. So, in the discussion and in the observation of what their team members, their leaders are practicing, this is a time that leaders should be mindful of. Well, I have an opportunity to attend a meeting, to lead a project, to offer some feedback, to get my team more involved so that they've got that opportunity for practice, so they've got a chance to see those applications coming to life. And what about improvement? What should we notice here, Martin?
So with the improvement, this is again coming directly from the app, and this is that algorithm, and based on participants' interaction with the app, it's estimating their improvement on the particular competency. As I think of this number, I think it's a good reminder to reflect whether me as a manager, whether I'm seeing that level of improvement also at work, and if that aligns with my observations. And there's also a great opportunity to get feedback. This is what I'm seeing. You've been improving this particular skills. This is the score you got. Let me tell you what I'm seeing on the job.
Absolutely. One of the other pieces of feedback we often get is from managers saying, well, how much should I trust the improvement scores? I know that my team member has the opportunity to tick off when they're practicing, but how do I really know that they're practicing? How do I really know they're growing? And this is where managers can really start to also, again, calibrate their eye, observe those improvements, and start to notice those improvements. What are they really seeing? With hybrid workplaces now, or most of us being almost 100% virtual, leaders are, or I should say managers are saying they're just not getting as much opportunity to see and experience growth, to see and experience change, or even to observe the work that their team members are doing on a day-to-day basis. This is what a space that leaders can now, I should say managers can now reflect on and really think about the improvement that they're seeing, having those conversations with their team members about what growth means, what improvement means, and also to help managers pay attention to the advancement and the growth, and when those leaders are ready to step up and take on more challenges. And then over here, we've got the weekly focus.
So this is the most current information about what your people are working on right now. So each Monday, they select a particular exercise to practice, and you can see that exercise with additional narrative right here in the weekly focus. That makes the coaching discussion or interaction during a one-on-one very simple. As you can see, we laid it out in a way that all the data is right at managers' fingertips or coaches' fingertips. They can quickly orient themselves and then pick up the conversation where it needs to be picked up.
Perfect. And I think, as you're saying, picking up the conversation, this is a great way for managers and team members to really collaborate on what this habit actually looks like in the flow of their day-to-day work. I know, Martin, you and I have had many a conversation where I've said, I just don't get how I would apply this to this week of work. And you've said, well, what about this opportunity, this opportunity, this opportunity? And a great collaborative conversation where we can see the same sorts of behaviors, but see where it might apply in different ways. So again, in those one-on-one conversations, in those weekly check-ins or team meetings, that's a space where managers can very quickly have those conversations and take them into the week ahead. And then finally, coaching notes.
Coaching notes. So this is, I think, a really helpful, unique way to track the discussions. This is only visible to the coaches. If you have multiple coaches engaged with a participant, they can quickly, again, orient themselves, know what been the discussion points or goals maybe from the previous session. And it's a really nice way to create accountability view, and you're sharing and the coaching responsibility so that the coaching session or the goals, the agreements from a month ago are captured here, and to check on them.
I think you said something really important there about alignment and visibility and accountability. That if there is perhaps a professional coach engaged with a team member and a manager is also monitoring, that there is that consistency and clarity where both people can say, oh, I see that this was discussed, or yes, we'll need to follow up about that, or that's interesting that that conversation is going in that way. We can have more of that. I also love the ability to signal a commitment to growth. I mean, there's nothing more important or inspiring when you can come back to your manager and say, I remember them, a week ago we were talking about this, or a month ago we mentioned that we were going to do this. And it really signals a commitment to growth, but also a show of deep care in one's development when we're able to keep track of what's being discussed and follow up. So we've had the development dashboard out for just, I think, a little over a couple of weeks now. Quietly sort of drew back the curtains and started to get some feedback. And the things that we've heard from customers that have started to look around at this so far have been great reactions. Number one, the first thing that our customers are saying, Jeepers, this really makes things more efficient. We've been doing manual report outs to managers and stakeholders about the app development, or where people are at, or how their improvements are tracking. This saves so much more time and effort. The other thing that we've heard is an excitement about this being retroactive. So for those clients that have been customizing and are quite thoughtful about the competencies that they're growing and they're having the app on, really great now to then quantify and see what kind of activity has been going on in the back end for many months, or in some cases even years. So being able to look back and see how the app is really changing the nature and changing the shape of the organization. But obviously, the most important thing that people are saying is it is so fantastic to get managers involved now in the development of their team, that they can now be part of the conversation, to lead the conversation, and to be collaborators in the growth of terrific and important leadership skills. And this is where we want to turn our attention now to what I think is probably the most exciting aspect of this dashboard, and the most exciting piece of evidence that we're bringing into this tool, which is the smart coaching suggestions. So, Martin, this is obviously a way to really personalize the coaching experience, but tell us a bit more about what this is and how it works.
Yeah, I think when we think about personalization of the development journey, there's of course that assessment and the importance of having good data upfront to personalize the development to the particular development needs of that individual. But there's another layer of personalization, and that is around the development journey itself. So, and the change journey. So we know that people go through various stages, and as they change, and they turn a new behavior into a habit. And some people just move faster. Some people get setbacks during the way, and some people just move slower. And it's very important for the coaching discussions to really reflect that. It's a very different coaching the coaching interaction with somebody who's just contemplating change. Maybe they just received the feedback and they're thinking about, well, is it worth the effort? Is it worth the time? Do I really want to make the change? That would be very different discussion than somebody who's now practicing, fully committed, and now they are maybe wondering about some feedback. Am I doing this right? Am I on the right track? So as you'll see on the next slide, we've really thought about what are some of the data points that we can collect from the way people engage with the application. How do we compare that to benchmarks that we have collected from thousands of other leaders? How do we integrate that with the feedback that we have heard from you, our customers and clients? so that we can have these very prescriptive, and we're calling them smart coaching suggestions, because they are algorithmic. So we use this information, we use the data from the application. We compare that with the benchmarks about how other people go through their development journey, combine that with your feedback, and that is what is creating these smart coaching suggestions. What makes them smart is that there is an algorithm that predicts where you are in the journey. And when you log in as a coach or a manager into the dashboard, you immediately see the coaching suggestions that are relevant for that particular stage of the journey. And I think this is the big innovation. This is what makes me really excited.
Absolutely. So probably, what people are asking now is, well, what should they do with this, or what does this really mean? I love that idea that you're saying that this is the next level of personalization, to track pace, to be thoughtful and mindful of where somebody is at when it comes to the suggestions that we should be offering. So perhaps you can just tell us a little bit deeper, Martin, about what are these stages that we should be thoughtful of when thinking about how people change, and then what do people need, and how does that differ in the coaching style?
Sure. Good question, Michelle. So this is the model that is coming from the Leader Habit book. So we did a lot of research early on as I was writing this book on what are the stages that people go through as they acquire new habits. And some of this will look very familiar for those of you who've worked in change management in OG. So they are various very, very unique stages that people go through as they gain a new skill. So first we have that not ready stage. So this is where people are not necessarily aware about their development needs, or they don't even know where to start. And the coaching goals there are going to be focused on first giving feedback, helping the person understand how this feedback is supporting you in your role and helping you achieve your career goals. And then really translating that feedback into maybe some early exercises. So what is a basic, simple exercise that you can start experimenting with the app as you learn this process? So that's the first stage. Then maybe the person now has understood their feedback. They see the connection between their assessment results and the career goals or the business needs in their role. And they're starting to move into this contemplation phase. Maybe some people skip this contemplation altogether and they get convinced and their motivation is there right away. I think most of us then go through this evaluation process, and we ask questions like, is it worth it? Do I have the time and energy right now? Is this the right process for me that's created through this application? Do I understand it enough to believe that this is going to help me change? So that's that contemplation phase. And now, once we know that a person is in the contemplation phase, we can guide the coaching discussion to help the participant understand how these particular skills that they are selected and the exercises will directly help them to achieve their career goals. How will this make you better in your role? So it's a very now targeted discussion. And from an actionable perspective, we can now guide the participant to maybe refine the particular exercise and find one that is more relevant to their particular job. So that was the contemplating. Now we're moving to action. So now the person has gone through their contemplation, they evaluated the pros and cons of change, and they're ready for action. So now they're really ready to give it a good shot. And here the problem or the question that many people ask is, how does this practice or how does this exercise really relate to my job? How is this relevant? How is this going to make me better? So that, of course, is going to need a different type of coaching conversations. And again, where we take that exercise, so we take the situation and the behavior apart, and help the person process what would this look like on your job? What does the trigger look like on your job? What does this specific behavior look like on your job? And then as a coach, we can utilize those written comments to guide the participant to actually focus their reflection on making that exercise relevant to their particular job. So they're ready for action, and they're bought into the process, they're committed to practicing. So now they start with some early attempts, and this is going to take a few weeks. So now they're convinced the exercise is relevant, they know how to do it. Now they actually are doing it or attempting it to do it on the job. And the question that often comes up, maybe some of you have heard it who have experimented with the app already, the question comes up, I don't know if I'm doing it right. I need some feedback. So again, as a coach or manager, now I can guide the person to create that self-feedback loop. So I can guide them on reflection. I can take that exercise apart and I can focus on the outcomes, right? So how would you know that you're doing this exercise right? What are some of the outcomes? And then guide them again to the written comments, utilize them. So those comments are now focusing much more on the reflection of or the outcomes of that behavior or that exercise. So after some early attempts comes the full-on practicing phase. We know that it takes time to build habits. On average, it's 66 days. So it's going to be a long journey with some of these simpler exercises, and they'll probably zoom through it much quicker. But this practicing phase now is creating a question in the mind of the person. Am I on the right track? Is this helping me to build that habit? So they need a bit of reassurance. And as a coach, again, that's a wonderful opportunity to guide that coaching discussion on that reassurance, asking feedback. So guiding the participant to ask feedback from their direct manager, their coworkers, any observations that they have made about their own improvement. And again, using those written comments to capture this information. And then the last phase, which is probably, I would imagine, the most frustrating for some of our leaders, is this mastery, or technically we would call it this overlearning phase. And this is where you hear things like, this is boring, it's repetitive, I've done this so many times that it's my second nature. And also, this might seem as negative feedback. This is exactly what we want. This is how you know that that behavior is becoming a habit. People find it relevant. They know exactly how to do it. And it's so boring and so so easy for them to do now that they can do it in their sleep. As a coach, there's a need for a reframe, right? So I understand you're frustrated. I understand this feels boring, feels repetitive. That's exactly where you should be. That's how you know that this behavior, this process is working. You're acquiring new skill. You're getting a new habit here.
Wow. So you've really taken us through what is probably decades of literature and research on how people bring about change, about how we should think about that model inside of our coaching practice, how coaches and experienced coaches might attempt to diagnose the stage that someone is at, how that diagnosis then informs the challenges they need to overcome, and then how to use the methodology, questions, and tools to get them back on the path of change. And what I want us all to remember here is that we have taken what might be the knowledge and experience and practice of some of the world's best coaches and distilled it down. So at the fingertips of your managers is now these very quick, simple suggestions that are broken down into, this is probably where your team member is at. These are probably the goals that you should target. Here's 3 questions that you can use to keep that conversation moving. What I absolutely love about this, and I think the opportunity is for now, we don't need to necessarily always need to be concerned about managers' capability or time to coach. We've given them the tools here that they can now more easily and more confidently integrate the right kind of personalization into their coaching conversations and bring about change, and also that culture of change, growth, and coaching. So this is really very exciting. Very exciting. What many of you might be thinking is, okay, well, what should I do with this new innovation? Where we are today with Pinsight, where we are today with our learning programs, where we are today with our leadership development, how might this fit? One of the things I would really encourage us to think about is that the use of the app and these tools shouldn't be think of an or when it comes to some of the programming you have in place, but rather an and perhaps a catalyst for increasing effectiveness on some of the programming and initiatives you have. So, some of the things that we've been thinking about is where this might fit in the world of talent acquisition, talent management, or OD, is that this has had natural integration and a natural add-on value add for many of those programs. The first place we can think about rolling up the app and then the application of this dashboard is into those new leader onboarding and orientation times. We know that those first 6 to 9 months are absolutely critical for leaders feeling encouraged and supported in their role, feeling that they have a place where they can grow and feel developed. There's a place where that they can feel understood and supported by their manager, but at the same time, they are drinking through the fire hose when it comes to either a step up inside the same organization or a step into a new organization. Having the ability to use the assessment results, engage the app, and then equip the hiring manager with this dashboard is really going to assist that time to productivity, that increase that sense of person job fit as they're stepping into their new role, but also give managers that opportunity to really understand the skills, capability, engagement, motivation, and growth of their new team members as they're getting settled into a new role or to a new organization. So this can easily be collapsed in and folded into either formal new leader onboarding programs or even just into the natural orientation process that leaders that many organizations already have. And certainly in the current state of play today, when retention of talent is so critically important, we really want to make sure that those 6 to 9 months, which are usually the most telling or high risk period for role turnover, we want to make sure we're optimizing and maximizing leadership development and support opportunities there. The other place this can roll into is existing leadership development programs, where you've got high potential programs, you've got people on a succession track, where you've got an excellent program of content that's been built out with a lot of supported experience. This is a natural way for managers now to be part of that conversation as well. I think many of us in the L&D space are always disheartened when we see the statistics about retained learning and how much people remember and apply when they attend a course or a class or a workshop. And what really we know makes the difference is that day-to-day practice on the job and also that reinforcement and support from direct managers. So this is now a way to add more legs to the stool so it's more stable, and we've got that not just that transfer of training, but the application of behavior change in the day-to-day workplace. And managers are now leading the charge for change, monitoring change, being aware of the growth trajectory, and it isn't just on the shoulders of the L&D department. Obviously, the other great piece for L&D professionals and talent management professionals here is that there's data to be able to report back on the ROI of those initiatives. We can see how much people are engaging in change. We can see their level of engagement in their own development, and we can watch those improvement scores grow. And at the same time, making sure that that support is really personalized. And then the other place that I think that this tool has a role is where we're thinking about organization-wide transformation and agility. I'm losing track of the number of reports, blogs, papers, and research that I've read in the last couple of years in particular about the changing nature of organizations. Organizations are talking about reskilling. They're talking about new skills for the future, but also new capabilities around being more agile, around being more empathic, around balancing work life and showing more caring and balance for team members. We're seeing leaders being called to be part of the retention and also the talent selection and recruitment process. There is absolutely a changing world of work in front of us, and it's only through having constant conversations about the types of behaviors and habits and culture that we want to build inside an organization do we get there. So this tool, once again, helps us starting to think about the types of behaviors and skills that leaders need to be equipped with. We can see very clearly where their priorities are, give them opportunities to practice. And now we're equipping managers with some very easy to use, simple types of integrations so that they can be part of making that transformation a reality rather than it just being the work of OD or other managers to push this change. We're now getting the whole organization involved in this new skill development. So here are some of the key takeaways that hopefully we're communicating today. The development dashboard coupled with the app really gives your leaders an opportunity to have personalized and supported development. We are, as we said at the beginning, very passionate. It is our life's work to ensure that leaders are getting the best and fairest and equitable opportunities to unlock their potential with high quality evidence-backed tools that allows them to show and shine their skills and to be seen for everything that they are capable of and to get out from the curtains of bias. With the Pinsight app, they get the hyper-personalized tool that's equipping them with the suggestions and the prompts they need that is fit to their personality, learning style, the role they're in, and the types of readiness that they're, I should say, the types of levels of skills that they are at this moment. With the development dashboard, managers and coaches can now have visibility into the capability of their the excellent talent assets they have in front of them, and they can now be part of the conversation to grow those behaviors, support those skills, unlock opportunities, and engage their team. It now makes coaching so much easier and more equitable and democratized. Managers now don't need to be off to coaching classes. We don't need burdensome subscriptions or trying to find consistent ways or consistent coaches in our communities. We can now equip manager with the quick and easy data and prompts that they need to bring coaching conversations into their day-to-day cadence, their day-to-day life, be it with the emails they send, the one-on-one conversations, the way they empower others, or the way they allocate work. As managers themselves are growing these coaching skills, there is a culture of change and growth coming about. As leaders are developing their skills, managers are supporting them with a mindful eye to readiness. The organization builds a habit of giving feedback, holding ourselves accountable to growth, and building the habit of coaching and advancement and performance. That only has the outcomes of increasing retention, increasing diversity, but also lifting performance across levels. This is why Rich is absolutely so excited to be launching this today, sharing it with our community of folks here on the call, but also further out into the world. Now, the next steps for you, for those that have access to the platform already in a subscription with us, it is there and ready and waiting for you. Talk with your Pinsight representative, the person that you talk with on a day-to-day basis, about how to enable this tool, about how to equip it, and also where it might be the right fit for the right populations at the right times. What you're also going to see in the platform as you jump in is some new software that will help you guide you through how to use these tools, cover some of the content that we've already touched on today, and will be an easy refresher for getting to learn on how to navigate and what you're seeing. So we've got some new software on the platform in conjunction with this release. Get familiar with this tool and start sharing it with your key stakeholders, those hiring managers, those key leaders and executives, and maybe even those coaches around your organization that would really benefit from adding their support to their leaders. Obviously, there's always our knowledge base for questions that you have and a space for you to get that immediate support. Now, I did say at the bottom here to use the upcoming poll. I didn't add a poll in there today, but I will just say if you have a request for more information, we've got a little bit of time left for Q&A now, but you are very welcome to reach out to us at any time with any questions that you have if you want to know more and if you want to have more of a discussion about how this fits with your broader talent acquisition, talent management, and organizational development strategies and services. All right, unbelievably, we have 5 minutes left available for questions. So as we've been going through here, we did ask to keep them to the end. You have your chat available to you. We are happy to answer as many questions as we can here with a few minutes that we have. And like I mentioned, there's also the space for you to reach out to us at any time to learn more. Thank you so much of you for joining us. It is absolutely delightful to see such familiar faces, to hear and see the feedback that's coming in. And we are looking forward to hopefully seeing you all maybe in person again soon and engaging with you and hearing your feedback about the development dashboard. We'll stay on the line here for those that need to jump off. You've got 4 minutes left back in your day. We'll stay on to answer any questions. But for those that need to say farewell, we wish you well. Thank you, Martin, for joining me for an excellent conversation.
Thank you, Michelle. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks so much, everyone. Good to see you. And we'll just keep monitoring the chat and answering any questions that you have.